My parents told my 18-year-old daughter. They desperately needed her college fund for a life-saving surgery. She believed them and gave them every penny without hesitation. 10 days later, we found out they secretly gifted $43,000 to my niece instead. I didn't yell or confront them. Instead, I took action quietly. Just 10 days later, a woman approached them with an envelope. They opened it and immediately started screaming. That evening, everything appeared typical, even unremarkable. It was one of those forgettable family dinners. Lasagna, various wine glasses, and the faint scent of floor polish because my mother had meticulously cleaned every surface, despite our lack of royal lineage. I didn't realize then that it would be the final time life felt ordinary. The last occasion I'd sit at my parents' table, requesting more garlic bread or offering a polite smile through a story I'd heard countless times. It was just an average night. My daughter Kira, newly 18 and experimenting with eyeliner, after a 2-year hiatus, sat beside me, perched on the edge of her seat, a habit she adopts when feeling uneasy around extended family. She's considerate in that way, trying not to occupy too much space, even though I've spent most of her life encouraging the opposite. Across from her was Josie, my sister's daughter, 21, striking and boisterous in a manner often mistaken for self-assurance. Not a bad person, just very accustomed to praise. Erica, my sister, seemed as radiant as ever, and my parents looked a decade younger than their actual age. One might think they'd discovered the fountain of contentment. Midway through dinner, Josie tapped her glass with a spoon and rose. I anticipated an announcement about a new job or another engagement to the same individual she'd sworn off. Instead, she beamed and declared, "I made an offer on a house." A polite hush followed, then applause. My sister Erica began to weep. My mother placed a hand to her chest, as if her granddaughter had just been crowned Miss America. Josie continued, eyes glistening. "I wouldn't have managed it without Grandma and Grandpa. Words can't express their generosity. It was far beyond anything I anticipated." I smiled, even clapped. Kira did not. I didn't want to mention the sum, but truly, I'm so grateful I have to. It was $43,000. I actually cried when I saw the transfer. There were gasps and cheers. My father joked about inflation, and Erica practically clambered over the table to embrace them both. I believe I uttered something like, "Wow, that's incredible." Because it was generous, yes, and a bit surprising, but we'd all been quiet about our finances lately, and perhaps they were simply feeling sentimental. I didn't dwell on it. I didn't feel hurt or excluded. I felt nothing out of the ordinary, except for Kira. She was utterly motionless. Her fork lay untouched beside a half-eaten salad. Her hands were clasped in her lap, clenched in a way I nearly missed. I leaned closer and whispered, "Are you all right?" She nodded without looking up. "Just tired." 15 minutes later, she stood and announced she wasn't feeling well. I offered to drive her home, but she insisted on taking the bus, saying she needed the fresh air. I let her go. If I'd known what awaited me at home, I would have pursued her, but instead, I poured another glass of wine and helped clear plates. I arrived home about an hour later. The house was dark, save for the kitchen light. Kira sat at the table, still, in her jacket, her phone face down beside her. She appeared not to have stirred. "Hey," I said gently. "Talk to me. What's wrong?" She didn't respond immediately. I could see her struggling to find the right words. Then she looked up at me, eyes bloodshot, voice barely a whisper. "I gave Grandma my college fund." I blinked. "What? All of it? The full $43,000? I transferred it to her. It was one of those moments where your mind attempts to shield you by decelerating time. I think I even chuckled slightly from disbelief. "Wait, what are you talking about? Why?" "She told me she needed it for surgery," Kira explained. "She said she was in constant pain, that it wasn't covered by insurance, that she didn't want to tell anyone else because she didn't want to be a burden." I sat down opposite her, the floor seeming to subtly tilt beneath me. "She said she'd been postponing it for years and now it was urgent. She told me the exact day I turned 18, said she'd been waiting until I had access to my savings." I gazed at her, trying to make sense of it. "And you didn't tell me?" She looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. "She asked me not to tell you. Said she didn't want to make it a big deal, that people would worry or try to stop her. I thought I could help. I figured I'd take a gap year, work, get student loans. I didn't want her to suffer if I could prevent it. I wanted to do something good." There was a pause. Then she added more quietly this time, I didn't do it because I was scared. I did it because I wanted to. My stomach lurched. How much? I asked, though I already sensed the answer. Kira pulled out her phone with trembling hands and turned the screen toward me. 43,000. The memo line read, "For surgery, hope you're okay," followed by a small red heart. I stared at it as if it might vanish, as if I might have misread the number, but it remained exactly where it was. And suddenly, everything else faded. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really thought—" "You don't have to be sorry," I said, my voice low and flat. "You were deceived." She began to cry. Then I pulled her close and held her, but I wasn't fully present. My body remained on the couch. My mind, it was already working, cold, focused, silent, composing a list. I didn't yell. I began to plan. And 10 days later, a woman presented my parents with a letter. They opened it and started screaming. People often use the phrase, "we're just a normal family." I used to say it too, not aloud like a slogan, but in that quiet, comforting way you attempt to explain things to yourself. Of course, my mother could be passive-aggressive, and my father conveniently forgot every birthday that didn't involve a man, but nothing out of the ordinary, right? Every family has its peculiarities. That's what I believed. Now looking back, I see something quite different. Not because they were cartoon villains. That would have been simpler. It's because everything seemed almost normal until it wasn't. I used to convince myself they were good people who made minor errors, and for a long time, I accepted it. When Erica became pregnant at 17, my parents didn't cast her out. They didn't shame her. They purchased prenatal vitamins and began reading parenting books as if preparing for a second round. Erica resided at home naturally. She was still a teenager. But they immediately transitioned into this all-consuming grandparent role as if Josie were some divine do-over. At the time, I thought it was wonderful. I was 20, juggling exams, a part-time job, and a long-distance relationship that should have ended 6 months prior. I had no time for envy. I genuinely admired their willingness to step up, to be the kind of parents who didn't judge their child for needing assistance. But somewhere between supportive and fixated, something shifted. They treated Josie as if she were their own, not merely in a loving grandparent way, but in an our last chance to get it right sort of way. And truthfully, that would have been acceptable too until they started asking me for help. Initially, it was minor things. Can you pick up diapers on your way home? Erica's feeling overwhelmed. Can you take Josie for the weekend? I always agreed. I didn't have a child yet, and I assumed that's what family does. We assist each other. But helping gradually evolved into financial support. When I graduated and secured my first job, they began calling with phrases like, "We're just a little short this month," or "Josie really needs new shoes for dance class and Erica's hours were cut." I didn't question it. I adored Josie. And back then, the expenses were manageable. Then I had Kira, and suddenly everything changed once more. I recall bringing Kira over for the first time. She was only a few weeks old, tiny, pink, in that wide-eyed baby alien stage. My mother held her for 10 minutes, then put her back, claiming exhaustion. She then spent the next hour showing me new photos of Josie in a ballet recital. I told myself not to overthink it. Grandparents bond differently, right? Perhaps they just hadn't connected yet. But months passed, years passed, and the disparity became harder to ignore. My parents gave Josie a charm bracelet for being such a shining star after a school play. When Kira received a top academic award, they mailed her a generic, congratulatory card signed they. They once threw Josie a surprise half-birthday party, complete with decorations, a homemade cake, and a $100 bill tucked into a glittery card. Kira's actual birthday? They called at 8 p.m. and said they'd forgotten the date. When Josie mentioned enjoying baking, my mother cleared out an entire drawer in the kitchen and labeled it Jaws' Baking Things. Kira once brought over cupcakes she made from scratch. My mother said, "Oh, I'm trying to cut back on sugar." It wasn't one monumental betrayal. It was quiet, repetitive, a pattern of praise in one direction and polite tolerance in the other. And I told myself it didn't matter because Kira didn't appear to notice until she did. But long before that, I noticed. I just didn't want to acknowledge it. The true moment it registered wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday. My mother called and said they were struggling with utility bills, asking if I could spot them $300. I wired it without a second thought. 2 days later, Josie posted a picture with a brand new iPhone and a caption that read, "Thanks, Grandma, you're the best." I didn't say anything, not then. But that was the last time I gave them money, without questioning. After that, I started saying no, promptly, politely, but no. Sometimes they pushed. It's just temporary. You're doing so well. But I held my ground. I thought that was sufficient. What I didn't realize, what still turns my stomach, is that while I was protecting my bank account, they were targeting my daughters. And the worst part? I believed I'd done everything correctly. Taught Kira how to recognize red flags, shielded her from questionable boyfriends, shady recruiters, online scammers promising free iPads. But I never imagined I'd have to protect her from her own grandmother. That wasn't in the parenting manual. They didn't just lie to her. They took $43,000, wrapped it in an embrace, and presented it to someone else. I keep wondering, were they always like this? Or did their fixation on Josie finally corrupt their common sense? Either way, I missed it. And my daughter is the one paying for it. Literally. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, trying to comprehend how we'd gone from a normal family dinner to my daughter having no college fund in the span of 2 hours. My husband Graham kept asking if I was all right. I lied poorly. At 3:00 a.m., I got up, walked barefoot into the hallway, and opened Kira's door just enough to confirm she was still breathing. I hadn't done that since she was a baby. She was curled up in a ball, hoodie still on, phone on her chest. In the morning, I drove directly to my parents' house. I didn't tell Graham I was going. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see her face. I needed to. The house was quiet. Leftovers stacked in foil towers on the counter, wine glasses soaking in the sink, the lingering warmth of a perfect little family dinner. My mother opened the door in her robe, mascara still crusted in the corners of her eyes. She blinked at me as if I were the one out of place. "Dana," she said, "is everything okay?" "You tell me," I said, stepping inside. She didn't attempt to stop me. She gestured toward the kitchen, put on the kettle as if we were about to discuss curtains or the weather. I didn't sit. "Did you ask Kira for her college fund?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "She offered it," she said, calm as anything. "She's a very generous girl. You raised her well. She gave it to you because you told her you needed surgery." "I never said I had an appointment." "You let her believe you were ill. You told her not to tell anyone. You watched her deplete her entire future for you. And now Joss is making toasts about house deposits." There was a pause. She looked down at the kettle. "I didn't force her. She said she's 18. It was her choice." My hands were clenched so tightly I could feel my nails pressing crescent shapes into my palms. "So there was no surgery?" I said quietly. She didn't answer. "You asked her $43,000 for a surgery that didn't exist." She finally turned around. "I might need a surgery one day. I'm not young anymore." It was so absurd I actually laughed, a single bitter sound. "Wow," I said. "You really are something else." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped, all pretense of warmth gone. "You're making this about you. Your daughter made a choice. If she regrets it now, that's on her." "She didn't regret it. She wanted to save you." I stepped closer. "And you let her think you were dying. You said it was private. You said you didn't want anyone to worry. You lied to her face." "She'll understand when she's older." "No," I said, "she won't." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked out, got in my car, and drove home in complete silence. At home, Kira was still in her pajamas, eating dry cereal from a mug. She looked at me, eyes puffy but calm. "Did you talk to her?" she asked. I nodded. "There is no surgery." She stared at the spoon. "That's what I thought." We didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "Do you think Josie knows?" It was a valid question, one I needed answered. So I called Erica. She picked up, sounding cheerful. Probably thought I was calling to congratulate her daughter again. I kept my tone even. I explained everything. How Mom had lied about needing surgery, how Kira gave her entire college fund, how that exact amount was now in Josie's new house deposit. Erica didn't utter a word for a few seconds. Then, "Look, I don't know what Mom told you, but that money was a gift. It's not our fault your daughter gave it away. You don't think she deserves it back? Why would we give it back? Mom gave it to Josie. End of story. Even if she got it by lying?" "I don't control my mother," she snapped. "And neither do you." Then she hung up. I sat down at the table, stared at the phone, and breathed through the anger. Later, Kira messaged Josie. A long, polite, carefully worded message. No accusations, just, "Did you know where the money came from?" Josie replied with one line. "Grandma said it was hers to give, and that was that." Kira looked at me with wide, exhausted eyes. To what? That was the moment I realized what truly frightened me. Not that they took her money, not that they betrayed her, but that this betrayal, was how her adult life was commencing. She was 18, barely old enough to vote, and already she understood what it meant to be exploited. We spoke to a lawyer. "I don't want to sue Grandma," she whispered. "I know," I said. "Well, start by gathering information. That's all, for now." It was true. We sat down together and printed out the bank transfer. The memo line read, "For surgery, Hope." "You're okay." We scrolled back through her texts. There were 2 messages from my mother. "I've been sick for a while, but I didn't want to worry anyone. Please don't tell your mom. She has enough on her plate." Our lawyer was calm, kind, and quietly enraged. She said the case was strong. It wasn't merely a family betrayal. It was fraud. Kira sat through the meeting, nodding slowly. She didn't say much. That night, she told me, "I want to talk to her first. I want to look her in the eyes and give her one last chance." I didn't argue. I simply waited. She went alone. When she returned, she didn't cry. She simply said my grandmother acted like Kira was the problem, like she was being selfish, like she was the spoiled one. Then she sat down, pulled out her phone and said, "Okay, let's do it." So we did. The paperwork was signed, the complaint filed. About a week later, during a follow-up call, our lawyer said casually, "Oh, and by the way, they've been served." She opened the letter right there in front of me and started screaming. Called me a predator, a traitor, and this was new, a brainwashed puppet of the youth. I blinked. "Seriously?" She chuckled. "I've been called worse." I didn't laugh, but I smiled a little because now it was real. It was official. They knew what was coming. And this time, there was no pretense, no soft landing, no escape. I didn't expect my mother to slander my daughter before the court date. But then again, I didn't expect her to swindle her either, so I suppose that's on me. A few days after they were served, the phone calls began. Not to us, of course, but to our relatives, our family friends, even the neighbor who once walked our dog while we were on vacation. Apparently, my daughter was a selfish, entitled brat who gave a little spending money to her aging grandma and then sued her for attention. My aunt sent me a message that read, "I hope this isn't true. Your mom said Kira is trying to take money from a poor old woman just so she can have more beer money at college. Please tell me this isn't real." Kira saw it. She didn't cry. She just went very still and said, "Beer money. That's what they think this was." I wanted to shout, but I didn't. We simply became quiet, organized, and focused. I sent the proof to the few people who still had the decency to ask before judging. The bank transfer screenshot, the for surgery, memo, the texts. "Please don't tell your mom. It's not covered by insurance." No commentary, just the facts. A couple of them stopped replying altogether. 1 or 2 quietly changed allegiance, but most just vanished. People are cowards when you ask them to choose between deception and confrontation. Then, 4 days before the hearing, my mother appeared at our front door. Graham answered, looked over his shoulder at me, and said flatly, "It's her." I walked out. She was in a soft gray cardigan, clutching her purse as if auditioning for a sympathetic role in a courtroom drama. "We don't have to do this," she said without a greeting. "We can sit and talk. You're my daughter. I know things got messy, but suing your own parents, Dana, this isn't you." I just stared. She continued, voice warm and trembling as if holding back tears, an Oscar-worthy performance. "You need to consider what this will do to Kira. She doesn't want this. She's just a child. She got confused, and now it's gone too far. You could still stop it. We could move past this." I said nothing. Then she dropped the warmth and snapped, "We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us?" That part was more familiar. I didn't shout. I just said, "You didn't give her anything. You took everything." She flinched, then left, muttering something about betrayal and shame. Graham closed the door behind her and exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for a year. And then it was court day. We arrived early. Kira looked pale but composed. She wore a dark blazer she borrowed from a friend and clutched her bag as if it might save her life. I didn't say much. I just sat beside her. My hand touched hers once, and she held on as if she might fall through the floor otherwise. When Mom and Dad walked in, they appeared small, but not weak. Not sorry. My mother wore pearls. Dad walked upright. Their lawyer, a slick gray-haired man with a perfect tie, smiled as if this were a game he was certain to win. And for a minute, I worried they might. Their version of the story was polished, emotional, just distorted enough to sound credible if one didn't know better. She offered to help, Mom said, her voice gentle and cracking in the appropriate places. I didn't ask. She's always been so kind. I told her not to, but she insisted. Dad nodded solemnly. She's young. He got confused, and then her mother got involved. Their lawyer framed it as a well-intentioned family misunderstanding that became tragic due to overreaction. When they mentioned Kira's Instagram, yes, they printed photos of her at a friend's birthday dinner, smiling with a mocktail. I thought I might leap across the courtroom, but the judge quickly shut it down. Let's stick to the facts, counsel. Then it was Kira's turn. She stood up slowly, walked to the stand, and I swear my heart broke just watching her. She read the bank memo aloud. For surgery, hope you're okay. Then she showed the text. Her voice shook but didn't falter. She said, she told me she was in pain, that she didn't want anyone to know, that it wasn't covered by insurance. She asked me to keep it quiet because she didn't want to be a burden. The judge turned to my mother. Was there a surgery scheduled? Mom paused. Not scheduled, but it might be necessary. I've had symptoms. Have you seen a doctor? I don't remember the name, but yes. Was there a diagnosis? I didn't want to worry the family. And you accepted $43,000 from your granddaughter without telling her mother? I didn't think she'd want me to refuse. I'm her grandmother. And did you use any of that money for medical purposes? Silence. Did you not use the funds to gift a $43,000 deposit to your other granddaughter? It was a coincidence. The judge stared at her for a long, long time. Then he spoke. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Kira Whitmore. The defendants are ordered to repay the full $43,000, plus legal costs. This court concludes that the funds were transferred under false pretenses with deliberate misrepresentation. Mom gasped, loud and dramatic, as if she'd just been wounded. Dad dropped his head into his hands, and Kira just sat there, as if she were afraid to believe it. After court, I overheard Mom whispering to Josie in the hallway. We'll fix this. Just give it back to us for now. We'll pay you back once we've sold the car. Josie said, you told me it was yours. You lied to me too. That's your problem now. Then she walked away. Erica refused to help, saying something about already having her own mortgage and not wanting to be drawn into this circus. A week later, my parents' house went on the market. 2 months later, they were living in a one-bedroom rental with peeling paint and no dishwasher. I didn't go see it. I didn't need to, because justice doesn't always come cleanly. It comes in installments, legal fees, quiet dinners, evidence, and finally, silence. Fast forward a year and a half. Kira is in her second year of studying psychology. She says she wants to understand people better. What compels them to lie, manipulate, betray the people who love them most. She's doing well. Still generous, still kind. But now she verifies before giving anything away. We're still not in contact with my parents, Erica or Josie. And honestly, life is quieter now. Cleaner. We sleep better. What happened broke something in all of us, but it also constructed something new, something stronger. But tell me this, did we go too far or just far enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.